Easter Island, Spanish, Isla de Pascua, Rapa Nui is an island and special territory of Chile in the southeastern Pacific Ocean, at the southeasternmost point of the Polynesian Triangle in Oceania. The island is renowned for its nearly 1,000 extant monumental statues, called moai, which were created by the early Rapa Nui people. In 1995, UNESCO named Easter Island a World Heritage Site, with much of the island protected within Rapa Nui National Park. Easter Island is also the only territory in Polynesia where Spanish is an official language. The current native population on Easter Island is bilingual, easily speaking both Spanish and Rapa Nui, which is the language commonly used by the islanders in their colloquial and family settings. Hanga is the main town, harbor, and seat of Easter Island, a municipality of Chile. It is located in the southern part of the island's west coast, in the lowlands between the extinct volcanoes of Taravaca and Rano. Ahu Vinapu is an archaeological site on Rapa Nui in eastern Polynesia. The ceremonial center of Vinapu includes one of the larger ahu on Rapa Nui. The ahu exhibits extraordinary stone masonry consisting of large, carefully fitted slabs of basalt. Although remains of 3 platforms have been discovered, 2 ahu of great monumentality stand out. Here, as in other ceremonial centers, all the moai were torn down around the 18th and 19th centuries, during the wars that took place between the different clans of the island. At Vinapu, the statues passed to a second plane, because what it stands out in this place is the great domain of the construction and carving techniques that were developed for building of the ahus or platforms in Easter Island. Here it is possible to admire a way of working the stone that does not exist in any other part of Polynesia, and that has given rise to many theories about the origins of the population of the island, which relate it to the Inca culture of South America. In the main ahu, also called Vinapu I or Tahara, located to the left of the route, there are 6 fallen statues face down with 3 of the Pekeo that top them. Its orientation, as in many other platforms on the island, is related to the position of the stars, and in this case, it is directed east of the winter solstice. In the backside that faces the sea, there is another buried moai from which only the head protrudes. His figure is very deteriorated due to erosion, and it is appreciated that the eye sockets were not carved, so it is deduced that he never reached the platform. Behind the statue is the back wall of the ahu that has originated the fame and the diverse theories of this unique place on the island. This enigmatic wall shows one of the finest works of Rapa Nui architecture. It consists of large blocks of stone weighing several tons, joined without mortar and adjusted with great precision and great aesthetic sense. This construction has a great resemblance to the structures that can be observed in the fortress of Sacsayhuaman and in the citadel of Machu Picchu in Peru. This surprising similarity has led to the scientific community of thinking of possible contacts between the ancient inhabitants of Polynesia and South America. Rano Kau is the largest volcano and one of the most beautiful and impressive natural settings that can be admired on Easter Island. The Rano Kau is one of the three main volcanic cones that gave origin to this small and remote triangle of Earth that is Rapa Nui. The crater that has a maximum height of 324 meters and is almost circular is located in the extreme southwest of that triangle a few kilometers from Hanga. The word Rano, in the Rapa Nui language, is used to designate the volcanoes inside which water is stored, as is the case with Rano Raraku or Rano Arwa. The word Kau has several meanings such as abundance of water and large, broad. So the meaning of Rano Kau could be a large or wide volcano with a lot of water, an absolutely correct expression to describe this amazing phenomenon of nature. The accumulation of rainwater inside the large caldera of the volcanic crater formed a large lagoon about 1.5 kilometers in diameter, whose shore is located about 200 meters from the upper edge. The surface of the lake, whose depth is estimated at about 10 meters, is covered to a large extent by numerous floating islands of Tatora reeds, which have a thickness of only 1 meter, which makes them very unstable. Orongo is composed of some 50 elliptical stone houses that offer a perfect view of the 3 islets or motus that are in front of the Rano Kau. This village was inhabited only in the days before the ceremony of the bird man or Tangata Manu, during the month of September, when spring came and the different clans of the island competed to obtain the first egg of the Manutera bird and thus get the government of the island. This ceremony was held until the end of the 19th century. The village of Orongo was inhabited seasonally by the chiefs and main characters of the ancient tribes, who hoped to collect the first sacred egg of the Manutera bird in the months of spring. It was a celebration of religious origin, in honor of the creator god Make, which reached its climax during the Tangata Manu competition. Those who took part in this ceremony lived during that time in houses that were specially built for this purpose and that have a special architectural type. It is believed that the first Orongo constructions were not related to the Manutera cult. In fact, just before the start of the village, on the edge that looks at the lagoon, there are the remains of a small ahu or platform. Only the basic ground level of a single moai is conserved, which according to some hypothesis could be the famous Hoa Hakananae moai. In front of the ahu some holes in the stones can be seen, which could have been used as an astronomical observatory to determine the position of the sun. The first stone houses in Orongo seem to have been built around 1400 AD, from the outcrop of rocks that rises in what would now be the center of the village. Over time, and especially around the Tangata Manu ceremony, 54 houses lined up on the edge of the crater were built, forming 3 independent sets facing the sea. Almost all the houses were looted and destroyed during the different European expeditions and rebuilt several times in the last decades. It is not known in detail how the competition of the Birdman or Tangata Manu arose. According to the tradition, once the cult of the ancestors that Moai represented was abandoned and the loss of prestige of the old political and religious order was increasing, opposing tribal groups arise eager to take power. Towards the end of the 17th century, it is established that the best way to achieve power is through an annual competition based in Orongo, where the winner would enjoy a series of rights and privileges over his rivals during his term of office. As spring approached, the most powerful groups organized themselves to participate in the competition. They met in the great village of Mataveri and then went up at the opportune moment to Orongo. Each clan elected a representative called the Hopomanu. At the culminating moment of the festivities and rituals, they had to descend the cliff of Orongo and swim to the Motu Nui with the help of reed floats called pora. There they had to wait for the arrival of the seabirds, until some of them could get the first egg of the Manutera. The winner announced to his team the result, which immediately turned his boss into the one chosen by Make to become the Tangata Manu of that season, until the following spring. The archaeological site of Tahai is one of the oldest settlements on the island whose earliest remains date back to 700 AD. It seems that these lands were occupied by the Marama clan and perhaps the Miru clan to raise its political and religious center. According to tradition, Tahai was the last place of residence of Naira, the last Ariki Mao or high-ranking ruler, who died and was buried here. The great focus of attention at Tahai are its 3 ahu or ceremonial platforms located on the small rocky cliff that rises above the sea. The altars form a visual line that stars in this magnificent setting. If you look straight at the platforms, the first group on the left with 5 moai statues is the Ahu Vaiyuri. The next one is the Ahu Tahai, and the last one with a single statue wearing a pakeo or hat is the Ahu Kote Riku. Ahu Kote Riku is the last and singular platform located further north. Above it rises a single moai of 5.1 meters high that was restored with all the elements that adorned the old finished statues. On his head it carries a pakeo, a cylindrical piece carved in red scoria from the Puna Pau volcano. This form, which according to different opinions represents a hat or a hairband, was placed in the last phase of construction of the Ahu. It is believed that the original pakeo of this moai was used to carve the Christian cross that is found in the nearby cemetery to Tahai. The other differentiating element of Ahu Kote Riku is that it supports the only moai that has eyes of the whole island. It is thought that when a moai was installed in its Ahu, the eye sockets were carved and, after that in a ritual ceremony, his eyes, made of white coral and obsidian pupils, were inserted in. At that time the statue was considered to come alive and could project the mana or spiritual power to protect its tribe. Therefore, all the moai look towards the interior of the island, as in Tahai, which is where the villages and their inhabitants were, and not towards the ocean. The Ahu Vaiyuri, whose name could be translated as dark water or green water, is the platform with the largest number of erected statues. Its construction dates from 1200 AD, and its 5 restored moai are a sample of the different styles of how they were carved. The first one on the right is currently a piece of rock that is barely recognizable. However, the one that follows, much better preserved as such as the first on the left, has a lower and more robust body than the rest and shows a grim expression. On the pedestal located further to the left a statue is missed. It seems that the moai that should occupy it now lies a few meters further south near Malloy's tomb, knocked face down on the ground and next to a worn stone head. Most of the Easter Island music and dances are of Polynesian origin. The Rapa Nui ancestral dances have been lost or merged, though it's still possible to find indigenous music rooted in the orally transmitted legends that are songs and dances dedicated to the gods, spirit warriors, the rain, or love.
Mesdames et messieurs, voici le Kaikai, un jeu de mots transmettre nos mythes et nos légendes à travers le monde. Damas y caballeros, el Kaikai, un juego de hilos que nos permite preservar nuestros mitos y leyendas. Thank you.